Hello and welcome to my studio. I'm Susan Clare and I'm a realistic painter working in acrylics and watercolour. Today I'm demonstrating for you a Rasta portrait, and just before we're going to do that, I'm going to show you a little bit of my outside view because it's just too lovely to miss before it gets cloudy or too cloudy. So I have my studio upstairs in my home here in Jamaica. And so this is what I'm looking out on. And I know I'm very spoiled. Because as you can imagine, it's a constant source of inspiration with constantly changing light. Those hills in the distance change every 5 minutes or so as the clouds pass over. And then I've also got a neighbour next door who's got lovely trees. And yeah, so just so you can see where my inspiration mostly comes from. So I have got a body of work that I call my Caribbean Faces. And this is really all about, it's based on Rastafarian people that mostly that I have met. And I thought it might be worth mentioning just for a few minutes the whole thing about the Rastafarian movement. I'm not going to go into history and stuff, but I recently read an autobiography by a young girl who's from Montego Bay, and she grew up in a very strict Rastafarian family. And I was quite shocked to read about the kind of oppression that was meted down onto her and her siblings, and this kind of attitude that, well, you know, a good Rasta woman is going to grow up and cook for a Rasta man, so why do you need an education? That kind of thing. So I just wanted to be clear, if it made me realize there are so many ways to interpret any kind of doctrine. And the people that I've come across that I'm drawn to paint are not those ones. The things that draw me to painting Rastas, and I don't have any of them here because other ones have all been sold or gone to galleries. But it's their innate kindness. There's a sort of a gentleness and a connection to nature. They mostly are complete vegetarians. They eat from the land. They grow stuff. They do smoke weed, but mostly harmlessly as part of their rituals or their belief system. Um, so this one here that I'm going to paint, I've called him Yoga Rasta because he actually is he's the yoga teacher at the Sandals, the large resort in Ocherius. And he has a calming, gentle energy that's really beneficent, and you couldn't wish for a better person to be in the presence of. So as usual, I usually start off my preparation for doing a demo or a portrait generally by doing some kind of a thumbnail sketch. And I went a bit more involved with this one to really show where the lights and the darks and the midtones are going to be. I wanted to see it in monochrome. As with any painting, you know, you have to have a good composition that looks good when you squint your eyes and you don't have any color involved. If the bones of it don't look attractive and appealing, if the lines don't lead you into the focal point, unless I've got my fan showing a lot there. Oh, it's Carol, hang on. If you aren't drawn to the focal point by higher levels of contrast and detail, then it won't work however much color you put into it. So that's why I always start with a thumbnail sketch or some kind of monochrome to see if it's working. Okay, so from that now, I look at my thumbnail usually while I'm painting as well. Another reason I do it is because when I paint, I'm not drawing it onto the canvas surface. So I'm looking at the reference picture, and I'm looking at my painting, and I'm glancing at my thumbnail sketch to give me the guidelines of the lightest lights, darkest darks, and positioning. But yeah, what I'm not going to do is draw out the image on the painting surface. Today I'm painting on, it's just a canvas board. So I've attached it to my backboard here hopefully you'll see it a bit better that way than when it's stretch canvases tend to bounce around a bit on that easel. So yeah, let me go to my other view so that you can see. Oh, let me just, sorry, before I do that, let me go through what I'm going to be using. So I do love to work with big brushes. And if you've seen me before, you'll do acrylics. You've probably seen me use these kind of brushes. Liquitex Freestyle, either the paddle ones or the long-handled ones. Working on a smaller piece like this, it's 12 by 16. I'll probably, I might sacrifice that one and stick with the medium small brushes here. This one is just over an inch, and then I'm going to have these rosemary brushes that are about 3/4 and 1/2 an inch, and that's probably my range of brushes for today, starting with the large ones, moving down to the fine details with the 1/2 inch. So in addition to my palette here, I love a round palette. As I was just saying to those of you that were listening earlier, it's a little bit unfortunate with the weather at the moment. It's been quite dry and hot, so it's hard to put out lots and lots of paint and expect it to stay for 2 or 3 months like it does in England. However, I do still like to use it in large palette wells so that I can pick up lots of paint together. So I'm still using this palette, but I tend to not put out quite so much paint and spray it often and cover it with my trusty, very expensive accessory, a shower cap, when I've finished so it stays damp. I've also got paper towel, a big pot of water, and I wanted to mention that the paints I'm using, as you know, if you've seen me talk before, I'm always on about plastic in the environment, and it does distress me that acrylic paint is mostly plastic. So I've discovered, the last time I was in England, I invested in a bunch of these. So they're Liquitex heavy body paints, but they are bio-based, they're called, and they are half the plastic content of regular acrylics. And I can't see any difference in the performance. They're actually the same price as well, which is very nice of them to do that. So I'll be using those mixed in with some of the other colours that they don't do yet. There's about 6 colours and white and black available so far. So let's get started, and I'll switch over to the other camera. Okay, so sometimes this does tend to get lazy and sort of dribble down. So if you're starting not to see anything, just shout out and I'll reposition it. But I think you can see, you are seeing the top and bottom of my canvas, even if it appears that you might be missing something. So here's our lovely Rasta guy who is on a platform overlooking the sea here. And I usually start with a toned canvas. As you can see, it's a lovely Caribbean blue. And the theory behind how to choose the color, there's one of 2 ways to look at it. I either choose a color that's going to be a complement to the main subject, which are all these lovely orangey browns in his face. So that's the main reason here. You can also choose a color that's going to build towards the sort of bulk of the colors in the image. So if it was a landscape or something, you know, a blue-green or something is a good background filler, because you actually end up doing less work. So in this case, if I were to be planning to do the seascape, this would do a lot of the work for me. I actually don't want to necessarily have him look like he's standing on this platform with a detailed seascape. I just want to have the feel of it. Likewise, when I'm doing portraits, I don't necessarily always focus on getting, if it's a commission, yes, but if it's just a portrait of a character, that's not for the person that the picture is of, then I quite often don't stress myself over getting a complete likeness. It's more about the energy in it, and the feel that the portrait gives out. So I'm going to start with my 2-inch brush here, Matt, and I'm going to dive in with a mixture of warm colours because I want to sort of position where his face is going to be, and we're going to be working with sort of warms and cools. I like the kind of chiaroscuro effect of this. Half of his face is a lot more shadow than the other half, and so I'm going to also make an effort to sort of blend that more into the background rather than having a seascape behind him. So I've dipped my brush in the water just to moisten it and get it to move a little easier. Not because I want to water down the paint. I like to use the paint fairly thickly, and I'm picking up, I don't know if you can see this very well, but I'm dipping into raw sienna, burnt sienna, some little bit of alizarin crimson there, and some blues. We want some blues in there. This method does tend to make your paint rather messier than otherwise. And then I need a piece of cardboard to just, I'm not going to thoroughly mix anything on a palette. I've got this trusty piece that's been used lots before. But I do find that if I just turn the colours over together, you get a better sense of how dark the mixture is that you've picked up. So that is looking exciting still, but definitely not too mixed. So we're just going to go generously. At this stage, everything's just about getting some colour on the paint, on the surface, and making it look not too contrived. So again, dipping into more paint. On this side, we want a little bit more shadow, so I'm picking up more of the dark blue. That's French ultramarine blue. And there's a little bit of the phthalo blue too, because that's the colour in the background. And so we'll use this one over this side more. And I do like it that I don't want lots of background when I do my portraits. It's about the person, so I want their face to be the main thing in view, unless there's some real interesting story to be told about what they're doing or who they are. I usually focus on the faces. Again, not really mixing, getting some good warm browns and lights in there. But compositionally, the focal point of his face is about 1/3 of the way down the image, and it's not dead center either. He's a little bit over to the left of center, so I want to keep that same positioning. I'm sure you know about the third points being sort of sweet spots. If he were dead center, it would look very static, so I want to avoid that too. Also notice that I'm using lots of colour. I can pick up some of the yellow there as well. We'll come on the sunny side. Show you very much. Going back into some of the warmer, shadowier browns. So picking up more of the alizarin crimson to form that. Oh, I also should have mentioned, I do like to push the colours a bit, so it's more than just exactly what you see there, but a little exaggerated in terms of colour intensity. I'm definitely not looking to exactly replicate what's in the photograph, because I think there's not much point in that. You might as well blow up the photo and have it on your wall. But that's just my opinion, and not nothing wrong with people who like that kind of art. That's a choice. Right, a bit more blue into the mix as we're going over into the shadowier side here, and I'm going to have to find back these lovely light holes within his locks, because I want to get a good, exciting sort of base in to start with that's not dependent upon worrying about where things are placed. Again, that lovely darkness that's in the hair, and we might do some of this sideways. And then over this side, these locks are quite dark and heavy, compared to the t-shirt at least. His t-shirt actually has a picture of himself on it, which I'm sure is advertising for his yoga course, but it's seemed an interesting thing to be walking around with a picture of your own face on your shirt. But, I thought we could do without that extra version of him. By using the flat blade of the brush and using it sideways, you can probably also already see that I'm starting to get the feeling of those locks because of the jagged edges, and this has that feel in there. In fact, while I'm in the mood for it, I'll just add in some slightly lighter bits and warmer bits to define them a bit more. Doesn't take much. More interesting when you have more of a mix of the colours. This is a bit flat now. We'll probably have to go back in and add some more variety in that. But just so that we can place, we're going to be working lighter and darker from the midtones. So in order to, I want to just make sure I don't have this kind of hugely bright blueness on that side particularly. I'm just skimming that out a bit and adding in, I've got some medium grey. It's a colour that sort of a neutral tone that's quite light that Liquitex does, that I found quite useful for just filling in gaps and stuff. Might also help with his grey hair on the top of his head and his beard. So I'm just streaking that into the colours I've already been using. I do like to not wash them out my brush if it can help it at all, so I'm not wasting paint or polluting the environment. So it's much better if I can just move from one colour scheme to the next and build the next colour from the previous one. shape of his face is quite interesting. He's a very skinny fella. He's got a lot of angles in his face. Make it interesting. So I'll need this to set up and dry a bit better first. I should have brought that warmer colours down just a tad more, because you can see some in the neckline. Just bring that through here. This beard will be going on top of that, but just wanted to get the reddishness in the neckline there. Grey tinges in his locks. Interesting how he's got, I suppose it takes so many years to grow the locks that was when his hair, that length was when his hair was darker. I would assume. Okay, so next we need to let this set up just a little bit. The colours are quite heavy there, so I think what I might do is give you a quick look at some of the other things that I've been working on while I'm waiting for that. My brush in the water for just a second. Any questions so far? Okay. Lost my other self. There we are. Okay, so in my studio here, I don't have a lot of work up here at the moment, but there are a few pieces that I was really pleased with that I put out to show you today. This is one of them that it's a bit different to my usual sort of seascapes. It was a very cloudy, stormy time, and I really wanted to focus on the sea foam. So that's quite a large painting. I'm not getting the line up right. There you go. The next one is also a seascape, and this one is actually the subject of an article in Artists and Illustrators magazine this month. It just came out a couple of days ago. It's the April edition. I thoroughly enjoyed doing this one, and it was really lovely to be asked. So this is a picture of boats in the grill. They put them up in the mouth of the river for safekeeping, and really enjoyed the play of colours and the in particular the marks in between the sky between the tree branches and stuff. Two little ones here. One was these are both. You probably know I have you may not know. I have an online painting club. It's only small membership, so it's still very personalised. But this is one of the projects we did a few weeks ago, and this is the one I just finished 2 nights ago for the video. I do a video pre-recorded with instructions, and then they painted in their own time. And twice a month we have a live Zoom to get together and ask questions and share work and generally have a good time. And that's a monthly membership on Patreon if you're interested. This is another one that was a workshop piece that shows some of the techniques we might do. I'm going to be doing some watercolor workshops and some acrylic workshops separately at my studio in Hoffs in Hadley when I come. And this is slight mixed media in with the watercolor. So I thought you might like to see that one. And what else? Oh, this one is, of course, my underwater piece that I love, with a lot of extra texture and plant life material representing the reef structures. Okay, let's see if this is. I don't really want to have to resort to a hairdryer. Go back to the lost my other picture now. Come on. There we are. Okay. So I'm going to do something to the background, and it still looks very wet here. I love these brushes, but I don't know if any of you have used them a lot, but you tend to find once you've washed them, you get dribbles coming out at very unpredictable moments. So it's always good if you can have two of them, so you don't have to go back to the same one when you want to do more. I want to stay with the same size brush for the whole of my sort of base layer. So I'm stuck with the dribbles. Okay, so I've still got bits of brown in my brush. I'm not going to make a big deal about getting rid of all of that. But we're going to pick up some light sky blue, kind of light blue that Liquitex does in this range. And in the same way, I want to give it some streaks. So I'm going to put it on here next door to my browns, pick up a little bit of grey and some white, a tiny bit of white. I don't want to get white in my painting too early. It tends to cut all the colour out. So just so that we've got some streaky sky going on, break up that very solid background. And sort of, we can start to define the edge of his face with this. Ends up looking too solidly grey. I can tweak it later, but as getting an outline for the structure of this fella. Quite useful. With the sea blue in there as well, but I don't want to take it into the dark levels of one. So I don't want to be distracted by the horizon when we look at his face. Also, we'll be putting on these little wispy bits later, but just so I know roughly where it is, I'm going to define that. Edge there. So we've got his white t-shirt coming out for his shoulder on top of this. So I don't really need to be going right up to the dreadlocks for that. Just a minute. So that I can get a bigger, broader brush stroke in with more movement in it. You know, I'm not worried about where that's going to come, that t-shirt. Similarly, over this side, we might want to echo that, but not very much because I want this side to be a lot darker so that you get some sort of blending in with the shadow side of his face and the background. So that we don't have like a bright white t-shirt isolated on its own. I want some of these colours, which are the colours that will be reflected on the t-shirt and bouncing around. I want these to be the colours, especially this slightly greyer blue, can be creating the folds and shadows in his t-shirt too. Some more whites than that, but I'm not going to do that just yet. Any questions? So quiet. Got a very good friend and yoga teacher, who's a friend of mine, who's married to a Rasta fellow. They are currently, uh, they lived in Jamaica and in the UK. Currently decided to sell up the house in Jamaica, and they've bought a mini camping van. Well, no, it's actually a car. It's a camping car. And they're documenting their adventures on YouTube. It's called Intuit Travelers, Intuit, if you're interested in following them and getting up to some quite exciting things well, they were in Europe in the summer, and now they've been Glastonbury and Stonehenge in the middle of winter. It's better. Some of that streakiness in there. He also has his own YouTube channel, and his name is Hugo, UGO, so it's called You Go, I Go, something like that. As in, where you go, I go. Where I go, you go. Anyway. And he also has an interesting podcast. No, I think it's in the same series of YouTube videos. He sort of explains what the whole Rasta thing means to him. And I found that very interesting to hear it from his, it's rather than maybe my interpretation could be influenced by, the music industry or all sorts of different external things. But it was quite interesting to hear what for him, it's all about living a harmless life and being close to nature, everything that you do, and being conscious of your impact on other people and things. Okay, so it's starting to look ish like a Rasta. We need to get to know where his beard is going to be. I'm still sort of thinking that's a little bit sticky right there. But we could, if we work on some more whites in this arrangement for the t-shirt, just bringing a little white into this blue-grey mixture I already have, but I'm knowing that around here I need this to be a fairly crisp edge for the edge of the shirt, and we'll be putting those lighter dreadlocks on afterwards. Using these brushes, it's not about drawing with the brush, it's about making short pulls, sometimes in the 90 degrees to the way you'd expect the direction to go. And in that way we get this blocky look. I can remember when I started learning this method from Hash, who I'm sure you have seen before in demos, if not in person. I can remember how difficult it was like turning your brain inside out, trying to work out why did you do it that way and not, the obvious way. And I think it took me a while to be able to, I started trying to sketch things in a blocky way instead of drawing them. And that really helps to understand how you would need to make the movements with the brush. It's like to draw an orange with flat sides and a jug without any curves, those kind of things. T-shirt then a bit. And there's a fold here. Now let's put in this shoulder. This is a lot of contrast with the background there because it's getting a lot of sunlight on there. So I do want it to be quite a good contrast, but again, I've got to be careful that doesn't compete with what's going to happen in the face. Because I can't go dark against white in the face. Not complete white, so I've got to be careful that I don't go too overboard with this level of contrast with the t-shirt edge. Oh, by the way, I've got two whites on my palette. One is a cheaper run-of-the-mill one for blending into things in the lower layers. And then I have my golden white, which is not golden, it's pure white, golden brand, which I'm going to be using for some of the, when it comes to the more highlighting on the tops of things, then I want that to really punch out. I'll use the expensive one for the top layer. This guy does seem to have rather slopey sort of shoulders and not very, picking up a bit of water, it's getting very sticky in here. But I think he's probably not young. These people that teaches yoga until they drop. So it can be forgiven for lack of perfect posture, I think. Okay. So I'm disturbing the layers below there, and it's going to look mucky if I mess with it too much. You might have heard me say before that it's a bit like making pastry, working with acrylics, at least heavy body acrylics. The more you blend and mix it, the more it's going to be like, you know how disappointing pastry is when it's all tough and hard because it's been beaten to death. So you want to make sure that you don't overdo that. I'm just picking up a little bit of bright green, which might seem like a silly color, but I can see a lot of green in that guy's beard. So a little bit of gray and some exciting green. I'm going to just sort of skim this over the top. I wanted this to be dry so that I could skim it and get this light sort of look. I'm not entirely sure it's dry enough. I'll just try it and we'll see. So I'm building his face from the outside in, if you like, at the moment. So by just using the side of the brush and not very thick paint, I'm getting that sort of light and airy look that looks more like his grizzled beard rather than a solid colour that I'm going to then have to texture into. He's got this lovely moustache. It's going to be, it's too wet still. I'm picking up now. More grey. The same look. I want to get some of that to integrate this, you know, the sky with the wispy bits of hair on top of his head. Oops. You lost the angle. I kicked the stand by accident. Darker bits there, darker bits there against the light. So a little bit of light here. And to sort of position this bit where we've got his moustache coming down on that side with the light colours. I think you can see I'm starting to get the proportions of his face a bit more in place. That here, so a bit more. A bit more green. Why not? I'm I'm picking up a little of the colour from beneath there, which is not really what I want to do. So I'm just going to put a bit of that burnt sienna colour into these, so I can get some warmth into these lighter colour locks from his beard. And a little bit of definition, because those will be the warm ones on the warm colour on the shadow side, and the sunny side will be cooler bluish lights, greenish lights. More green. Funny how far-reaching the Rastafarian movement has its influence. I was just on holiday in January. I went to Australia, see my brother who lives there, and I've never been to see him there before, and I haven't seen him for quite a few years, so it was really overdue. Anyway, so I went to Australia and then to New Zealand. I ended up getting my hair cut in New Zealand, and the lady that cut my hair said that in her spare time she does dreadlocks. She's learned how to make dreadlocks, which is apparently quite in demand. Okay, still waiting for this to get a bit more settled down. I need to put, so I want to find the shadows of his eye sockets and these shadows under his cheeks. This is going to really help to define where everything goes. So I think I'm going to switch down to a slightly smaller brush. For time. We have a break at about 1/4 past. Would that be a sensible time, Chris?
Whatever you like, whenever it's convenient to you.
Yeah, we'll see how this if I can get this to work on top of here, then we'll carry on for a bit. Otherwise, I might get the, if you have a tea break, I might get the hairdryer out. But I think I'll give it a go working on top of this for right now. So I want to go back to the darker version of this these brown mixtures. So I want some French ultramarine, burnt sienna, and that's going to give us the darkest kind of darks, right? That's two together. Maybe a little bit of alizarin in there if it looks too deadish. Warm it up. Okay, and so just looking proportionately, getting shine on it, so that's one squid sort of having to duck down to see this properly. So one of the big mistakes that people make with portraits is putting the eyes too high up and also putting them too far in the middle. So because his face is, his nose is over this side here, and we're seeing round to his ear on that side, we want to make sure that this eyebrow is far enough down for him to have that lovely high forehead, and that it connects with almost with the outside of his face. And of course the shadow that the eye socket creates is going to be a lot bigger than the eye, so we don't need to worry if we make it a bit too big. More paint that's not too sticky. And then the angle at which the eyes, usually there's a slight angle, it's not dead straight across. This eye is closer to us, even though that's the one with the sun on it. This is closer to us because his face is turning away. So this one will be slightly bigger by the rules of perspective. And you can see he's almost got a connection. He hasn't got a unibrow, but the shadows are connecting up because he's got deep sockets. You can see how sticky this paint is here. Really quite a mess. Okay, and that shadow, little dimple or a wrinkle or something around here that's creating a nice shadow there. Shadow under his nose. Blue into it. Now this is slightly bluer colour, so I'm just going to put in the parts that actually, whoops, is darker. I need to get the paint to move, actually. It's really sticky today. Oh, I'm being quiet while I'm focusing on getting the eye right. There's not much detail visible in his eyes, but it'll certainly look wrong if oh gosh, it's picked up colour instead of putting down. Beginning to give him an eye. Furrows in his brow there. And the shadows join up together. This one needs to come over the furthest. Yeah. Over there. And again, picked up the colour.
Susan, do you find humans harder than, say, an elephant?
Probably. It depends on which human, and the struggle I'm having today is all about the paint. It's gone so sticky I can't hardly even get it to come off the brush. I don't understand quite what's going on. But you know,
What's the weather like there? Then is it hot?
it's very hot and muggy.
Mm.
Sunshine, but it's there's rain clouds are threatening, but it's
Mm.
so is the paint. Yeah, I would say that the human form, whether it's like life drawing or, you know, facial likenesses and stuff, is the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
So right now I'm looking at the proportions of around his nose to see what connects up with what. Have I got that point far enough over? There's this shadow that runs down from the contours in his nose. There's dark in the beard there as well, so I'm just going to put it in to help me to guide my eye to know that, okay, that's not really that dark, but there is a shadow there, and you know, there's wispy bits of that shadow. So I'm looking at the angle of his nose coming down, and we've got his mouth to negotiate, and then the little light bit on his beard is here that I put in, but it's not sticking on very well yet because of the stickiness of the paint. But so this dark shadow comes in, we've got to have room for his lower lip, and then we've got a dark shadow where his mouth is open. So that shadow comes in to meet the moustache. Might be a little bit low. But yeah. And that's a very broad nose. The nose needs to, this has gotten too thick, but need to make sure that the nose is as wide as the pupils on the sides there. In this case, anyway, not in everybody. We have shadow here into his beard. Still very wet there. I think might be a good time now to have a break so that I can get this to dry off properly. I'll put the hairdryer on it. Does that make sense? You can go away and have a cup of tea and come back in 10 minutes.
Okie doke. Thank you.
I'll leave it. Yeah, I'll pause the recording so that you can chat if you want to. Okay, so I've dried off the image with the hairdryer and it's looking a lot less sticky now. So hopefully the next layer of paint will actually stay on instead of just sliding about. So the next thing I'm going to do then is just so that I can get a better idea of whether I've got this right. I have a feeling that certain things are not quite in the right place yet. This nose needs shadows under it, and I want to put some, I don't want to put too much bright highlights on yet, but I want to define like the top of the brow there so that I know that that's in the right place, that kind of thing. So I'm going to work on some slightly warmer colours, just here and there. And this can be more, I like it when you have sort of some blobs of sort of pure colour dropping in here and there. It might look like they're too much like little rectangles, but actually it somehow is quite appealing from a distance. I don't know about from the view you're at, but and some of these will build to become much higher, brighter highlights. Brow bone there comes down And you can see a little bit of light around the edge of that real dark there. So some of these will actually be brighter highlights eventually, but just so that I can know that I've got things where they should be, I can't need to put them in. This raw sienna that I'm using pretty much straight at the moment, just to get some of these richer tones in for positioning. You might need to scumble some of that beard back over to get the effect properly. Hear the rain starting. This side we've got interesting little shape there. His nose has dropped down a bit too far there. It seems to come up here. And here. You kind of look and see the way things line up. He has quite an interesting nose, not very, I don't know if it's broken nose or if it's just contoured, but it's goes on quite a journey this way and that.
What color did you say that was that you're using right now?
Sorry?
What color is that you're using right now?
Raw sienna.
Raw sienna.
It's very orange, isn't it?
Hmm.
It's what?
Very orangey colour.
Yeah, yeah. But then I'm going to be toning it down with creams and stuff on top. And that will kill the colour out of everything. So we need it to be a bit richer than we want it to be right now. Adding a bit of burnt sienna in. You have to let me know if you can't hear me. I can tell this is going to get a bit noisy. The rain.
I can't hear it.
Can't hear the rain yet?
No.
No,
Okay. Okay. Just putting some alizarin crimson into that mixture that we had, and this is going to sort of tell us where his lips are, and that side of his mouth where his mouth disappears into much redder here. We already have a red patch there, which is nice. It's nice to be similarly rich in tone. Likewise, colouring his nose needs to be a bit red, warmer and darker down at the end there.
Are you going to attempt the teeth, Susan, or?
Going back to greys so that I can put in some his moustache. A bit of green. Dark enough, but we'll come back to that. I've got this in his teeth at the moment, which of course teeth are a huge challenge because things like however you try and do them, whether you it never seems to work to do them individually with acrylics somehow. It always looks clumsy. So it'll be a case of finding out how to suggest them without them being there fully. Red, an accident there. Not green. Bit of white going into this now to vary up the lid. About the colour of his teeth as well, so. Okay, the lights into the light on his lip there. Right, this greyish, a little bit more dark to define where his mouth is. So back to my blue-brown mixture with a bit of alizarin in it. Got a nice smile, but it's definitely quite a challenging smile. And here is where it was very sticky before, so maybe I can get this to be a better shape now. Shadow under the nose as well as mouth a little. I want to put my hand on something sticky, but I want to rest my hand on something so as not to make a big old mess. He's a little bit more smiley than he was. Now he needs to get that shadow beneath the moustache, where the moustache on the teeth. So, okay, lining up the edge of his mouth comes about under the pupil there. So a little bit further. Just some of the little gappy bits in his teeth without making too much of a thing out of it. So I want something a bit warmer for his upper lip, even though I can't really see that it's very warm, but something tells me that we need that in there just to. I think his teeth are probably going to be a bit short-changed here. Oops, sorry. Stepping back from it a bit because I can't really see what's going on with his eyes. Okay. Some lights, some creamy lights on the highlights of his forehead, and then I can use that also to bring in some more lights, highlights where they belong. So I'm using the raw sienna with white. Yeah, I think that's about the right sort of colour. I've mixed it more than previously, just because we're getting to the point where we're building towards highlights, so we want to be quite specific with them. So you can see here I'm picking up that textured look again, and on top of the what you were saying, it looked very orange, which I agree, but when you have the other colour over it, it's going to suddenly make more sense. Oops. Here's where I run the risk of getting everything completely mushed up. squint my eyes at this to see where patches of light are. But not necessarily so obvious. But actually, hands up. Highlight on here. He's got a highlight on his teeth there. Work out where that is. Yeah. Quick what's next. I don't like this. I've decided I should have maybe put that more in blue after all. Two minds, but it's confusing things at the moment. Okay, touch of that raw sienna. Just want to make this a little bit more integrated into his cheek there. I need a darker colour that can make some details in his eye, because whatever happened before with that paint was not really working. It was so sticky, it's not in the right place at all. So I'm just watering down some of that dark paint that we created, see what's really going on there. Picking up a bit of raw sienna to go with it. And some of this alizarin crimson mixture. So what I want is a sort of a dirty grey something that has a vague relationship to his brownish skin colour, but in the shadows, so that I can put on like that highlight that leads from the sparkle on his cheek and goes up into his eyebrows. Little smile lines there. I'm missing those some sort of way. Kind of an exaggerated shadow colour. I quite like the bluishness of it. I just want to put it in some places that are on the shadow side to create some change of tone with what's already there. The shape of his top of his brow has lost its contours, and we've got some shadow here that needs to be more interesting. His ear here, and then there's dark hair coming here. I need to put some more details in that hair. And, I think it's a dark dreadlock that's hanging through there that looks a bit like a change of colour there. And then I want to be able to put in some more details of these dreadlocks. But of course they won't show up if I don't have a lighter background there. So yeah, that was a bad decision on my part there. And we're just going quickly and put in some of that greyish blue mixture, the background. Negatively get the wispiness in some of these maybe. You're also quiet.
Mesmerised.
Okay, not as long as it's not asleep. You never know. His ear would be there. Just, not the right colour, but I'm just working things out here a bit. There we go. I think he's going to give him more definition. We'll have it against a lighter background. I liked the idea of it, but I don't think it was working in practice. I'll put on those wispy bits in a minute. And we've got the negative painting to get in here. Beside the beard coming down from the ear, just about here. Slightly darker. Look a bit too bright there. Of course, I'm looking at it as sea and sky instead of, it should match the background here more anyway. Did you hear my cat's calling me? Right. Put a bit of grey on top of this. Too obvious there. And touch of brown into the grey for this is going to do these bits are a bit bluer. Colour. Right old mess of these mixtures, but I just want something darker than we've got there, with sort of tones and is on the cool side. So just to give it a bit of a haziness there. That's it. Lost the plan of his hairline there a bit. Looking a couple of the lights showing through here, so I'm going to try and put those in a bit of lighter tone of this. Light blue. A bit. That up a little bit better. I realise I don't have his t-shirt in on this side either, so I need to get a little bit more. I don't want to make it bright white, but I'm just going to give it a sort of change of colour from what's there. It's too similar. A bit of brush has gone all sticky too now, so I'm just going to change to a new brush to get some of the highlights on. And very rarely put completely white on its own because it just kills the colour. So in place, just want to, just as we've got some highlights catching here, I want to have some highlights that catch. I'm just going to put a teeniest bit of yellow, sort of a grey yellow together. That you can see when I put it right there, you can see it's a whole nother level of highlight. It's, we owe this guy an apology because I've mangled his teeth, something rotten. But it's probably the least important part of his portrait, hopefully. Does anybody have any questions? Or comments at this stage, because I think I'm probably coming to the.
There's a question in the chat.
Uh-huh.
There's a question in the chat. Is the brand of your smaller brushes the same as the bigger ones you showed us?
Good question. These are Rosemary. The last two I've used, the smaller ones. Do you know Rosemary brand? They're wonderful. So mother-daughter company.
Oh,
They're usually at the Patchings shows and events. And they, every brush is handmade. They're absolutely wonderful. I don't know, it's hard to describe why they're good. They just feel amazing when you use them. So, yeah.
somebody's also said, so do you use mediums?
No, I do when I'm doing things like mixed media, like gesso for texture, and mediums to seal the surface of when I put elements, mixed media and natural objects into my surface. I probably should explore that with the problems I'm having with the stickiness, but to be honest, I could work it out for today's weather, and then tomorrow it'd be all different again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just prefer less is more in my whole pantheon of existence. So I'm even, I'm looking more at, I should be using, in fact, I do quite often in my work that I do for shows and stuff, I'm doing more palette knife work, because all the plastic on all the paint, aka plastic, is going from the palette knife onto the canvas. And if not, then it gets wiped onto a rag or a piece of paper and it goes in the landfill, which is not great, but it's a vast amount less than if you wash a brush out in water. So that's sort of partly where I'm leaning at the moment. Or use an old credit card or something. It doesn't have to be a palette knife. Anyway, how are we doing for time?
I think he looks very kindly.
Oh, good. Well, that was the aim of it.
Yeah.
I think putting those, it's funny how the highlights all of a sudden pull the story together, and there are a lot of mistakes in there, but they're sort of forgiven because the highlights take your attention away from all the mess.
I think it's lovely.
I think it's terrific the way it's all come together.
Yeah, pushing and
The gift
pulling.
of time, eh?
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
nice.
I felt like I was spending a lot of time on his beard, but actually it needed it, because now you can see that there's a lot of layers and tones in there, which otherwise it would have looked just very flat.
Yeah, he's gorgeous.
Can you pull the camera just back slightly?
Yeah.
So that, because we can't see the top of his head at the moment. And I want to take a picture.
Oh yeah.
I will be sending you one anyway. But,
He's smashing. Can you bring him over?
Yeah, he's in Osherias. I don't know if he'd like a trip to England. Let me just show you, in case you want to get a snapshot of this, a screenshot of my contact details, and most of you know this already, I'm sure, but just take
That was a good idea.
that's an easy way to do it. Okay.
Can I ask why you don't go into oils? I can see why this layers up quite nicely with
I like the
dry
speed.
paint underneath.
Yes. Well, you see, I was already getting frustrated because it wouldn't dry fast enough.
Yeah.
I think it's partly because I learned how to use acrylics properly. I was using acrylic. I'd already sold a few acrylic paintings before I came back to England in 2013, but that was when I made the change and came full time for 7 years. And it was during that time that I started taking classes from Hash. And what really resonated with me from how he was teaching it is that you play to the strengths of the medium you're using. So
Right.
if you like to blend, use oils. If you like things to flow, use watercolors. And acrylics, the thing that they do naturally is to be bright and have body and dry quickly. So this blocky style with layered building up the layers and the texture really appeals to me because it ticks all those boxes of how acrylics behave naturally.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you can water down acrylics, but then you threaten I think there's a proportion, like if you put more than 40% water with them, you are actually breaking down they behave the way they do. They don't need sealing, they will last forever, all of that because the plasticity is in place. And although we hate plastics, when it comes to longevity, it can have some positives to it. So, but when you water it down like that, then the consistency is no longer, it stops behaving like a plastic and it just behaves like a bunch of little tiny bits in water, which,
Right.
then you're saying goodbye to all the good things. I've just noticed there are a lot of highlights through his dreadlocks here that I've missed out. So I will go back in and put them in.
Do you know, I was going to say that, but I didn't want to.
Oh,
I've
you could
noticed
have,
that. I thought,
Chris.
Jen put that in, and I thought, no, I won't say that.
I could do that right now, or I can do it in a few minutes and then send you the photo.
No, this is going on Facebook tonight. You're too late. I can't wait till you.
Okay. All
No,
right.
that's terrific. I think he's gorgeous. I like him
Thank
better
you.
than the photo.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
he's
got
got
better
more
teeth.
character than the photo.
Thank you.
Have you imagined that when you first started off, though? I've got to say.
You were worried, were you?
Well, I wasn't worried because I know you and I knew it was going to come together, but I couldn't see how. I thought, blimey.
Thank
But
you.
no, it's good. It looks lovely.
All right.
Yeah,
So,
he's beautiful.
just to reiterate, so I'm here at the end of March. I've put some dates on my website, susanclaire.art website, under the workshop section. I've put 4 dates for watercolors on a Monday and 3 dates for acrylics on a Thursday if it ends up being just a few people at Hoff's, or if we can get a group together, a bigger group, then I'll hire the hall at Widford and we'll do a big workshop there.
Susan, I think you need to say where Hoffs is because a lot of people don't know.
Okay, Hoffs is in Hadley, right opposite Morrison's on the London Road. So very easy to get to if you come down the 130 and just take directions to Benfleet or Hadley, and you end up coming in on the A13. And it's on its own little island in the middle of the traffic with its own free car park. The only sort of challenge is going upstairs. There's no lift, and I'm upstairs on the, it's like 1.5 floors up. It's a weird arrangement because it used to be obviously the fire station. Yeah, so I have room for like 4, 5, possibly 6 people doing a workshop in my studio. And if it's more than that, then can probably go to hiring a hall. The hall at Widford. Then nobody would have to travel so far. Well, you wouldn't have to travel so far, just me. So
They can always car share.
huh?
They can always car share.
Yes, that's true. Yes, yeah. So that's my plan. So those dates run through like 1 date each in April, May, and June. That's the theory. So I hope you enjoyed today, and
Yeah.
look forward to seeing all of you at some point soon.
Yes.
Hello, what was that
Thanks
ding?
very much, Susan.
Don't know what that ding was.
I think
Oh,
that
it's
was
Denise
me
Goodwin's.
unmuted.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, thank
it
you.
was great, Susan. Thanks
Yeah.
very much.
I should
Thank
actually.
you so much.
Somebody's upside down.
What? What?
Lost the thing now.
Oh, there's
Have we got an echo?
yeah.
Susan, do you want to stand next to the painting and I'll take your picture?
Sure. I don't know how that's going to work, is it? I don't
No,
think you've got.
I've only got you down the bottom of the screen. You got to,
Oh,
Oh,
good idea.
How's that?
that'll do. That'll do.
oh,
Lovely.
lovely.
Like he's looking at me and I'm looking at him.
Mm. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. It's been a lovely afternoon.
Thank you, Susan.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
Bye.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
soon.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.